Hi everyone, I'm Jody, and I'm presenting my IMA capstone midterm literature review. The idea of my capstone project mainly stems from my interest in concepts such as the self, mind, perceptions, consciousness, and also the boundary between real versus unreal from an IMA perspective. As I didn't have a chance to look into VR formally through courses, I would also like to take this opportunity to obtain a better understanding of this field. I then came up with a broad project idea about assessing self through some interactive, immersive experiences. And after completing the first round of literature review, I narrowed down the assessment of self to personality in particular based on some well-known theories, meanwhile limiting the medium to VR-driven immersive storytelling. And the project brief now was to investigate the potentials of assessing personality as part of the self through immersive media and storytelling. And here is some important literature that I found contributive to my project. The first one introduces some foundations of the self-report method in psychology. According to Robbins' classification, personality assessment in conventional questionnaire forms falls into the type of indirect self-report, which refers to inquiries of personality-related questions while obscuring the straightforward assessment on certain personality traits. Therefore, no matter what specific form the test utilizes, it won't change the nature of the indirect type, as more experiences will only add to the indirectness and greatly depend on the researchers' interpretation of the answers, which will just make it far away from being direct. And in this sense, applying immersive storytelling to personality assessments indeed inherits the advantages of self-report, such as people possessing direct information about themselves and having an innate so-called self-preoccupation about exploring themselves. Meanwhile, immersive storytelling also alleviates the problem of disguise, say, intentionally pretending to behave in certain way because it adds to the indirectness, thus making this kind of disguise hard to maintain. And therefore, it legitimizes the potential of bringing immersive storytelling to personality tests from say, a psychological perspective. And the second piece focuses on a case study following the concerns on conventional questionnaires discussed in the last piece. The authors aimed to apply the 2D interactive storytelling for MBTI tests rather than they just take an online questionnaire. So they designed a story happening in the medieval period for users to perform the role of a country leader facing another country's threats, every time demonstrating a representative image of what is happening in a story for the purpose of increasing this sense of immersion. And ultimately, the experiment correctly hits around like 80% for the four pairs of dichotomies of MBTI, despite the relatively small number of subjectives. And they found the patterns that people with the same personalities usually choose the same choice. And therefore, it indicates the great potential of 3D immersive storytelling, because 3D immersion by nature will help reduce the arguable distraction from screens rooted in 2D. And also, from this experiment, I was quite interested in how, in the story itself, like how do they choose the role of medieval leader of a country? And in general, how do the authors make this kind of determination of such embodiment in the storytelling? The third piece looks more into the topic from perspective of media. According to the author, users' cognitive process largely depends on the level of immersion, which is to a large extent dependent upon the personal traits. It is saying that even giving everyone the exactly same medium and surroundings, what people perceive and experience would be different because they have different personality traits. And this then contributes to the potential of immersive storytelling, because the nature of immersive storytelling is to provide the same environment and avatar to everyone, and then expect to predict their different personalities based on their different experiences throughout the process. And it actually excludes the technical features of immersive environments, which makes the statement much stronger from the perspective of media itself. And this focus, therefore, should be more on, say, the concept development and storytelling design rather than the technological development of the setting or other technical part. And the last piece deals with one of the most important concepts of my project, that is the empathy. It defines empathy as a multidimensional construct of cognitive, affective, and associative empathy. And the author proposed that immersive media is legitimized to enhance associate empathy, which defined as the process of audience assuming the identity, the goals, and the perspectives of the on-screen character through a higher level of immersion and sense of process in the context of news exposure. Therefore, it is reasonable to hypothesize that similar mechanisms should also work in the context of self-assessment. Meanwhile, the author emphasizes another key concept of the co-presence, which from my perspective is also a determining element that might contribute to personality assessment through immersive storytelling. Therefore, based on the literature review so far, I further narrowed down my project direction to focus on the characteristics of immersive media in the context of personality assessment as a partial attempt to self-discovery. And this targets the research gap that the immersive storytelling is lack of research in this personality assessment context, while proposing to investigate the potentials of assessing personalities through immersive storytelling and to identify some intervening factors that might contribute to better assessment. For example, the embodiment and the co-presence that I've already mentioned in previous literature review. By far, the first question has been partially answered through a theoretical analysis, includes the nature of personality tests as a self-reporting method, the relationship between immersive storytelling and personality traits, and the concept of associative empathy mediated by the presence to virtual environment. And also some literature review on other empirical evidence, such as the 2D interactive storytelling function, and the immersive media allowing real experiences for news. So in the second part of the semester, I would also like to concentrate more on the determining factors that might contribute to better assessments, as I just said. I might review more on the principles of determining the embodiment in immersive storytelling, and also to review more on how those co-presents contribute to the immersion. And that's all. Thanks for listening.